Hello, you're listening to BBC Radio Wales and I'm Lynn Bowles. I'm with you for the next couple of hours. We'll be digging up the oldest house in Wales. It's underneath a football pitch, and an art exhibition which takes as its subject one of the worst miscarriages of justice in this country.
BBC Radio Wales.
Stay with me. I've got some cracking guests, some really interesting guests for you. We will do that after this. Hello, it's Lynn Bowles with you as usual on a Sunday afternoon, and I'm delighted you can join me. Now, over the next couple of hours, I've got some great guests and some good music to take you through until 5 o'clock when Mr. Noble, yes, the sainted Mr. Noble, takes to the air. After 4, I'm going to be hearing about an archaeological dig not too far from here that you might be able to get involved with in the future. But before that, to a unique art exhibition that's just opened at Blackwater Gallery in Cardiff. It explores the murder of Lynette White and the subsequent miscarriage of justice. The artist is Ian Mackenzie, the gallery owner is Jamie Aherne, and both join me in the studio. Gentlemen, thank you for coming in on a Sunday.
It's our pleasure. Nice to be here, Lynn. Thank you.
It's lovely to have you. Lovely to have you here. Now, Jamie, the exhibition was launched on July the 4th. Busy day for politicians. How did it go?
It went absolutely fantastic, actually. We had great interest with regard to the actual exhibition, but I think the interest which was spawned was purely based on the tragedy that happened to Lynette White over 20 years ago. So I think the interest and the intrigue of the story alone drew in the crowds on July the 4th to look at the incredible work of Ian Mackenzie.
We all know this tragic story. It's a difficult subject, though, isn't it? Were you worried?
I wouldn't say worried, but I was concerned on the basis that it's a very controversial subject for many reasons. And when you actually start getting into the story, there's so many twists and turns and layers within layers. So, yeah, of course, it's a very heartfelt story still to a lot of people. And of course, a lot of families were affected from this tragedy. So, obviously, when Ian Mackenzie brought the idea to the gallery last year, for me, the importance of artwork, if it's deemed as controversial, can be a good thing because that causes debate and conversations. So, as a gallery, it was a no-brainer, you know. Of course, there's a fine line with controversy, but I think the importance of these two pieces showed, first of all, the miscarriage of justice, but also kept the story alive. Even more so for the one surviving Cardiff 5, who is John Actie. And obviously, when Ian brought this idea to us last year, I think the importance of having John Actie on board and supporting the project was very important to us. And thankfully, he was very proactive, very supportive, and they're still fighting the cause, of course.
Of course they are. Ian, from your point of view as an artist, it must always be a bit of a nerve-wracking experience. I mean, showing your work to the public, any of your work to the public, is that a bit difficult?
It is, yes. You just lay in your heart. There on the canvas, you spent, some pieces 3 months. I mean, these were 6 months to create, but it's just a simple piece that you've created can take so long to do, and it's there for everybody to point. And when you call yourself a photorealism artist, trying to create a photographic sense to fool people into thinking it is a photograph, but it's oil paints. You are opening up a can of worms for people to criticise you.
Have you ever, because of course lots of people don't know what you look like, so have you ever stood behind people as they kind of like, oh, I don't know, I don't think he's managed it there, or, oh, that's fantastic. What's it like, you know?
Well, I haven't done that. I haven't heard anything.
Really? You haven't been tempted?
Yeah. Perhaps I'll, become a Banksy and
wander about.
Yeah, yes.
But you said 6 months, and I've seen some of your photos, and they are highly realistic, and it does almost look like a photo. I suppose I know it's not a photo, so I think it's not a photo. But is that 8 hours a day for 6 months?
It's 20% of the time is the painting. 80% is the research, the stories behind the paintings, the looking for the angle. the preparing, looking for the who would be the best model to portray a particular picture, and then all the photographs, the sketching, the practice, and then it is just building a layer after layer after layer. Some have got 10, 12 layers of paint, letting them dry, then the next layer, let them dry, let my eyes recover from the detail I need to try to achieve. That's hard. I've changed my glasses about 3 times in the last 4 or 5
Is it
years.
ruining your eyesight then?
It is quite hard,
Oh,
yes.
really?
I had to go to the optician to get specific glasses last year.
What, to get really close?
To get, and it literally was measuring 14 inches from my eye to the canvas, and we were just laughing in the opticians, and I had a specific pair to put on. So the fine detail, I put these last pair of glasses on, and I can see the detail, and I think, oh no, hang on, this needs another 2 weeks' work.
I'm just a bit stunned by this kind of layers and layers of paint. You must be such a perfectionist. Were you always like that?
I guess so. I had a 30-year career with South Wales Police.
Oh, don't worry, we'll get onto that.
Okay.
I'm not going to let you away with that.
Oh, no. But in that, I was responsible at the National Assembly for Wales for the police unit there, and that was royal visits. And those royal visits and the visits to the Prime Minister and things, they have to be done down to the nth degree. And the planning, and I guess that's where I've got this from.
You can just do it. It's natural to you.
It is natural. Abstract art, it would annoy me so much. It would really annoy me.
You're not a cubist then, are
I'm
you?
not. No. It'd be too messy.
This is outrageous.
Absolutely.
Again, I return to you, Jamie. Most of us know about this appalling subject that. I'm still going to be interested, obviously, about how you've dealt with it, Ian. But if you could explain, maybe people don't know about Lynette, what happened to Lynette and those accused of her murder. If you could just, for anyone who's not completely up with the story, would you tell us it?
Yeah, of course. I wouldn't say I was the fountain of knowledge on the subject.
Absolutely.
But from what I've seen and what I've read and what I've listened to, unfortunately, there was a tragic murder back in 1988 of a local Cardiff prostitute whose name was Lynette White. And at the time, she was just 20 years of age. And she was brutally murdered, cut on the neck and stabbed several times across the chest. At the time, my understanding were there were 2 witnesses who seen somebody in a doorway clutching their hand, which was blood-stained and looking very anxious. So immediately there was an eyewitness saying they'd seen somebody who was a white male in a doorway. There was a second witness a few minutes later when he walked around the corner and sat on a bench next to a lady, again, obviously with his hand blood-stained and hiding his one hand under his jacket. So we had 2 witnesses, both stating they'd seen somebody at the scene who was a white male. My understanding then, it was a photo fit of the potential murderer. But then for unknown reasons, the police then started their investigations on what is known now as the Cardiff Five. And one of the Cardiff Five was the boyfriend at the time of Lynette White, a gentleman by the name of Stephen Miller, who was actually from London originally. And the other 4 members were all local chaps who were born and bred in Cardiff. Those 5 men were then arrested and repeatedly questioned over a number of days, very intensely. As an example, the ex-boyfriend stated over 300 times at the time he was not at the scene, had never been to the flat, offered his clothes as forensics. But like I say, under police interrogation, after days and days and days, he finally broke down and said, well, yes, I could have been there. And I think then that was the turning point for the police to charge all the Cardiff Five. One can only sit down and just imagine what they must have gone through as an innocent man. Not just to be accused of a murder, to be 5 black men accused of murdering a white girl in such a brutal, savage way.
So eventually it was deemed a gross miscarriage of justice.
Yes. My understanding is that all 5 stood trial at Swansea Crown Court. And I think with regards to this particular story, there's so many layers within layers and twists and turns, and the fact that the day before the judgment at Swansea Crown Court, the judge died the night before.
Yes.
So again, the 5 had to spend another 12 months on remand waiting for the second court case. On the second court case, 3 of the men were found guilty, 2 of the men were found innocent. The 2 men found innocent was John Actie and his cousin Ronnie Actie, and the other 5 were all found guilty and given life sentences. And what really struck me in particular is one of the Cardiff 5, whose name is Tony Paris, who unfortunately is no longer with us, who sadly passed away in the last 2 years. He mentioned that when he was found guilty, he was told he'd been taken to Wormwood Scrubs, which is synonymous, as we all know. But to be a black man being taken to an English prison on the basis you're supposed to have slaughtered and murdered a white girl, you can only imagine what his life must have been and the repercussions for him. So yeah, I mean, a gross miscarriage of justice. My understanding was then it became a cold case. And then a number of years later, he was picked back up again from officers outside of Cardiff, and also new forensics, because obviously by this time, several years later, the technology had advanced. So my understanding from what I've seen and read is that the forensics on the actual flat, there was a piece of skirting board which had slightly come away from the wall, and there was just 1 drop of blood behind the skirting board. And this 1 spot of blood transpired to be what we now know as the murderer, a gentleman by the name of Geoffrey Gafford. And the reason the exhibition took place this year on July the 4th, it was the 21st anniversary of the sentencing of Geoffrey Gafford, who is still incarcerated to this day.
We are going to take a break for some music. We will be back. I want to talk more about this art exhibition and that miscarriage of justice with the artist and with the gallery owner. I'm talking to artist Ian Mackenzie and gallery owner Jamie Aherne about a new exhibition. Now, we've touched on what the exhibition is about, which is the miscarriage of justice around the Lynette White murder and what happened to the 5 men. Ian, if I could ask you, you were in the police. Obviously, you were not connected with this investigation at all. I want to make that completely clear.
That's correct.
And as you just pointed out to me, there were 3,000 of us, Lynn, in the South Wales Police, or in that part of the police. So, what made you want to do this? And indeed, what did your former colleagues think of you having anything to do with art on this subject?
Well, in relation to former colleagues, I did have some concern. I had some people asking, well, why are you doing this? It's because it's basically fraught with unanswered questions. I felt uneasy about doing it, to be honest. But the more I spoke to people and the more I looked at the artwork that I was doing, I have a collection of art that I've been creating called the Heritage Series. And it's all about Welsh history, Welsh culture, Welsh life, telling stories of Welsh people. And, I've told stories of the Aberfan disaster, the Pierhead building, the £1 million cheque, the Mimosa, the ship that left for Patagonia. I've done those, including Robin Friday from Cardiff City. So it's quite an eclectic collection of stories. And in amongst all that, with 30 years in the police, there is this story of this mistravesty. And there's a very, very lengthy, continuation of trials and tribulations. And I thought, I wonder if I could do something to capture one little bit of that in some sort of way, shape or form, a story, to do it somehow respectfully to the Lynette White family and all the families in Cardiff Bay, and just do my best to try and capture something that would go within the Heritage Series. And that's where I started doing the research. And then it just snowballed with the people I spoke to, because I didn't want to speak to colleagues from South Wales Police in its entirety. So I spoke to a person by the name of Satish Sekar, who was an investigative journalist, and he gave me an insight, because he's written 3 or 4 books on the subject. I spoke to then different people, and I finally went and spoke with Kevin O'Neill, who was the detective chief superintendent, now retired, but he led the final investigation that caught Jeffrey Gafford. And in this, I described what I was trying to achieve. And the one painting is called The Consequence. And it's a pair of hands with handcuffs on. Notionally, they are Jeffrey Gafford's, because I did apply to the prison to have access to Jeffrey Gafford to see if I could speak with him. I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound. I thought he might not. He didn't. So I spoke with Kevin O'Neill. I said, look, this is what I'm doing. And he said, you've got to base it on fact. And the fact is that DNA caught Jeffrey Gafford. DNA categorically proved it was Jeffrey Gafford and not the Cardiff 5. And I took that in essence. And these hands have 16 names. They have Lynette White's name on as well. And in the painting, I created Lynette White's name fading away, because it became secondary, her name, with what happened and all the melee that ensued afterwards, with all the trials, mistrials, the appeals, people being arrested, witnesses, subsequent police trials. And so I've created a piece of artwork that has 16 names on it of all the people who, based on fact, appeared before a court of law to account for what they did or did not do. And in that, there are the 8 police officers who stood trial. There are the 3 witnesses who stood trial and went to prison. And of course, there are the 5, the Cardiff 5. Now, all those, as a result, as a consequence of Jeffrey Gafford's actions, had their lives totally and drastically changed forever. There's no going back, no rewind, no start again. All 16 had their lives drastically changed. And you could say that they all became victims of Jeffrey Gafford's actions. And that's where this painting came from. The consequence of his actions just literally ruined so many people, not only Lynette White, but the far-reaching aspects of those 16 people.
And it goes on, doesn't it? Jamie, I think you want this to be more than just an exhibition of art, don't you? You want it to start a conversation about justice and indeed reform.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me as an art collector and also as a gallerist, you can walk around a gallery and look at some beautiful paintings on the wall. But for me, it always has been, especially going back several years ago, where when I was collecting art more intensively. For me, it's always the story behind the artwork, and obviously, Ian and Blackwater Gallery has been working together now for a number of years. And what fascinates me about Ian's work more than anything is the story that he creates behind the artwork, and the intense research that he does beyond the artwork to make it incredibly factual. So for me, as long as it's not, there's obviously a fine line with controversy, but I think art is there for an artist to maybe speak his own words through his artwork, and therefore creating, in this particular project, controversy. But for me, controversy is a good thing because it keeps the story alive. So I think that's very important, especially for the surviving Cardiff 5 at the moment who lives in Cardiff, John Actie. Of course, there's 2 surviving members, which is the ex-boyfriend, Stephen Miller, who lives in London, who my understanding is he'll never come back to Cardiff. So the only surviving Cardiff member is John Actie. So I think it's very, very important for him and this project that Ian Mackenzie underwent to create these 2 beautiful pieces of artwork, because for him, it keeps the story going. Because my understanding is at the moment, there's also another book being written by a former BBC colleague, Kerry Dawn Jackson, which may also then be made into a dramatisation, which I think would be absolutely fascinating as a story.
If I could ask you, Ian, what's next for you? Because you've it takes you 6 months to do one of these paintings. Are you working on the next one? What are you working on next?
Well, I have said I've taken some time out.
You and your eyes.
Yes, me and my eyes. But I am considering other aspects. I have got some other ideas. Again, with the hands, because there's so many different stories to tell and so many different things. I've been asked, will I go down any more miscarriages of justice? I don't know. But there are so many different stories to tell. It's like when I created the second painting, you know, I didn't think I would be able to do it. It's a large painting. It's 6 foot tall, and it's all the hands holding up, you know, the notional body of a person, Lynette White. I did not make her look like Lynette White. It was just for her, out of respect for her and the family. But it was all the hands and all the community coming together to hold it because of everything we now know of it. You know, and the first responders, all the different people in there, just trying to keep her alive, knowing it's a loss of life, it's a loss of 16 people's, you know, families involved, the money, 50 to 100 million pounds in this whole judicial system, and of course the community itself and the outrage of the community. I mean, it was Tiger Bay, so that's where the title came from, was the uproar, the roar of the Tiger Bay.
Tigers.
So it has, you know, I'd say it has taken its toll on me in doing this, but it's invigorated me as well, because I do have other ideas, and it doesn't stop. So, you know,
it keeps going.
Yes.
Jamie, if I could ask you, where can people come and see the exhibition? Give us some details.
Yeah, of course. So Blackwater Gallery is situated on a development known as Prospect Place. And geographically, to give you an idea, it's kind of at the back of the ice hockey rink. And also behind Morrison Supermarket. So, yeah, we're based on Prospect Place in Cardiff. And also you can visit the website, which is blackwatergallery.co.uk.
Ian Mackenzie, thank you very much. Jamie Aherne, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Good luck with the art.
Thank you.
Good luck with the gallery.
Thank you.
Thank you.